Welcome in. I'm Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. It's great to be here with you. Now, what I want to dive into next, Oregon State and Washington State. There are rumblings, conversations, reports about some kind of potential Big 12 interest. That is not surprising to anyone who's been paying attention. The question is there mutual interest? We know that Oregon State and Washington State have no home. There's no way to know what exactly their future is going to be. So, according to a new report from Jim Williams, media insider, he's done very good work on the conference realignment side. He's a worthy X, formerly Twitter, follow. He put up on X on Monday, he said, high-ranking source familiar with the American confirmed that no member would be leaving to join a newly formed Pac-2. Meaning Oregon State and Washington State trying to poach any AAC teams is not going to happen. He adds here in his report, also sources with both Oregon State and Washington State confirm their hopes once their lawsuit is over with the Pac-12 to join either the ACC or the Big 12. I don't believe the Big 12 needs to necessarily expand beyond what it currently has, the 16 teams it will have after next year. But I'll tell you this right now. If you're looking at Gonzaga, I'd be looking at Oregon State and Washington State a heck of a lot closer because there's actual football money to be had there. It's not just about, a potential basketball deal. You guys know if you've listened to this show, if not, you can catch it from another week, that I'm against Gonzaga. Gonzaga is a small school in Spokane, Washington, that is only Gonzaga because of the joke of a conference they play in. They dominate every year. They get to the big dance as a 1, 2, 3 seed. They oftentimes underachieve in the big dance. And if Mark Few retired tomorrow, I don't know what Gonzaga basketball is. I am dead set against Gonzaga as a standalone basketball program. And I guess they also would add them for I don't know, figure skating and soccer or something like that. I am dead set against the idea of Gonzaga. But if you want to talk expansion and you want to talk what the Big 12 should do here going forward, I'll tell you right now, Oregon State and Washington State have a heck of a lot more appeal to me than Gonzaga. Like both these teams, by the way, have been pretty darn good. Not just this year, but the last couple of years. They've been underrated programs out of the Pac-12. They bring you football money. Oregon State is sitting there at 3-1, ranked in the top 15 in the country. Washington State was ranked, and then it's, suffered a couple of early Pac-12 losses, but Washington State is still 4-2 overall. They beat Wisconsin early in the season. They beat Oregon State, by the way. Now, they lost to UCLA. They lost to Arizona this past week. They got embarrassed by Arizona. But you have two decent football programs that could help round out the football side of things. Brett Yormark's approach is we want to split basketball from football when it comes to the contract and try to make some money off of basketball. And he doesn't think, I guess, the value is there from Oregon State and Washington State to justify adding them. But if we're going to have the expansion conversation, I would much rather have it with Oregon State and Washington State than Gonzaga basketball. And by the way, if you're going to go the basketball route on expansion, can we look to the Big East? Can we look to Villanova and UConn? Can we look at some of those schools, right? If we're going to go that route, like bring back some schools that make sense for West Virginia that they know from their Big East days. That would make a lot more sense to me than going to Spokane, Washington for a multitude of reasons. So I don't get it. I don't understand the Gonzaga thing. I've told you guys that a million times now on this show. But I will say if Oregon and Washington State want a home, I am open to it. I am willing to sit here and say, you know what? Let's talk about those two programs because they've proven themselves in the football field. Now, they've had good years. They've had bad years. They both happen to be having pretty decent years right now. But I'm willing to have that conversation. And by the way, I don't know where the Big 12 contract stands right now since expansion. But as I recall, if the Big 12 added any teams from power conferences, they would get an equal amount of money in the TV contract from ESPN and Fox. Now, I don't know how that would hold up or if they would apply that to Oregon State and Washington State because, like, they're in a Power 5, but that Power 5 is going to cease to exist in, 9 months? So a lot of that's confusing. But it does, if you want to have that conversation, it's much easier to add a team that plays Power 5 sports already, including football. And I understand why your Mark views basketball as incredibly valuable, or I should say undervalued in the marketplace. But football is still king. And bringing those two schools in based on what they've done, it's not going to hurt you on the football side if they can maintain their Power 5 status. They've proven they can compete. Yes, they've had bad years in football. You know who else has had awful years in football and awful stretches of football? Arizona State. Arizona as well, although Arizona's looking a lot better. I like this new head coach they got. Colorado, pre-Deion Sanders. Frankly, not even sure how good Colorado is right now when all is said and done. They've been awful at football, right? They've had those stretches. So you can't, I don't want to go through the fine-tooth comb of those two programs and justify why we can't add them if the rest of the Big 12 is on board with it. And frankly, I think the new schools will be on board with it in large part. I think that the Four Corners would love to have two more Pac-12 teams in the mix. It would be good for travel. It would work for everybody. You got two more late TV slots you can work with if you're the Big 12, which is what this is all about. You start at 11 a.m. Eastern. You go all the way until, midnight, 1 a.m.? Or I should say 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. Let's just say noon Eastern till 1 to 2 a.m. Eastern time. You could have 14 hours of Big 12 football on any network starting next year. Why not add to that? The late TV slot is going to have some value, so the Big 12 should not miss the boat. All right, there you go. Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Thanks for joining us and being a part of the show. Hit that subscribe button, whether you are on iTunes, the podcast, YouTube, thumbs up there as well. We so appreciate you guys joining us, helping us grow this show each and every week. It's because of you that we've been able to make this happen and make this possible.